Well, hello, all my amazingly beautiful zodiac family and friends. My name is Libra Empress, and this is another episode of Terror and Tarot with Libra Empress. Today, we are going to be watching 3 urban legend horror stories animated by IMR Scary Tales. Without further ado, let's get started.
Kim woke up with a terrible headache. It took some time for her to realize that she is lying on her bed. Last night's party went a little overboard. She slowly got up and moved the curtains of her bedroom window. The sunlight brightened her dark room. With stumbling steps, Kim went to the bathroom and started to wash her face. Suddenly, her phone rang. She turned back and noticed the phone lying on the floor under her bed. God, how drunk was I? She said to herself. She went ahead and picked up her phone. It was Rick. Rick and Kim worked together. In fact, last night both of them were together. They went to a party at one of their colleagues' house. Kim answered the phone saying, "Yeah, what is it?" For a second, she couldn't understand what he was saying. Kim said annoyedly, "What are you saying, Rick? I am not getting a single word of yours." She could tell from Rick's voice that he is in terrible shock. Rick replied with a shaken voice, "Kim, Shelly's dead," and started sobbing like a kid. Kim felt like the sky over her head would break upon her at any moment. She said out loud, "What? What are you? How? How did it happen, Rick?" Rick said in the same sobbing voice, "The cops are saying she killed herself." Kim was beyond shock. She said in the same shocking tone, "What do you mean by cops? How come they are involved in this?" Rick said, "I can't say everything over the phone. Noah and I are going to the subway station near our house. Meet us there in 15 minutes. Before Kim could ask more, Rick disconnected the phone. She sat down on her bed with a terrorized face. It has been 6 months since Kim joined this new workplace. She works as a graphic designer for a fashion magazine. Rick and Noah work in the accounts department. They often hung out together. Last night, they were all together at Sean's house. Sean invited almost everyone to the party, except Shelly. Everyone at the office kind of avoided her due to her creepy nature. Shelly had a crush on Sean. She even proposed to him twice, but Sean made it quite clear that he's in a relationship already. But Shelly became obsessed with him. She kept texting him and trying to make conversation with him forcefully at the office many times. Her stalking behavior went on for a week until Sean announced his engagement. Last night, they threw Sean a bachelor party. Shelly was acting really strange after Sean announced his marriage. She stopped talking to anyone. No one saw her at work for the last 3 to 5 days. When Kim reached the subway station, she could see people gathering on the platform. There were cops everywhere. The track was sealed and the railway service was stopped. She didn't realize what was going on there just when she saw Rick and Noah walking towards her from the crowd. Their faces were pale and drenched in fear. She asked Rick, "Will any one of you tell me what the hell is going on here?" Rick wiped his tears and said, "It's Shelly. She jumped on the track this morning and committed suicide." The security footage is showing that there were very few people on the platform today, as it is a Sunday morning. Shelly was standing on the platform. Suddenly, the subway car approached from the other side, and when it came close to her, she jumped on the tracks. Noah said in a terrified voice, "The cops have called the paramedics. There is blood everywhere. She is still lying there," and stared at the edge of the platform with fearful eyes. "What do you mean by she's still lying there? The cops should have picked up her body. What the hell is wrong with them?" Kim said in an angry voice and started to walk towards the track. Rick went to stop her, saying, "No, Kim, you don't understand. She is..." But before he could say anything further, Kim was already near the tracks. There were bloodstains all over the platform. But as her eyes went ahead, she screamed at the top of her lungs and fell on the platform floor. Shelly was lying on the tracks, but her body was ripped off in 2 parts. Her lower body was under the subway car's wheels, while her upper body stood still. Her eyes were bursting out with blood filled inside them. Her entrails were gushing out from her slitted waist. There was blood all over her body. Her mouth was wide open. She might have screamed in terrible pain when the subway car ran her over. It was a vicious sight to watch. Kim couldn't take it anymore. She was feeling nauseous. Noah and Rick lifted her and carried her to the other side of the platform. She started throwing up. After a while, she finally holds herself together and sat down on the stairs of the subway. A cop came and offered her some water. The paramedics came and took out Shelley's sliced body. When the three of them reached Kim's home, it was almost afternoon. They sat down on the couch. None of them could believe Shelley is no more. Noah broke the awkward silence and said, "Did anyone tell Sean about this?" Rick said, "I don't know. Let me call him." Kim was sitting with a blank, pale face. Rick dialed Sean's number and told him about this unfortunate event. Sean's reaction came like a huge rock. Sean said in an irritated voice, "Look, man, I am not her boyfriend. Neither was I her friend. I really don't understand why everyone is calling me since this morning and making my life miserable. This isn't my fault, dude. She assumed things on her own. Please stop involving me in this bullshit." Kim couldn't believe Sean's words. She finally lost it. She snatched the phone from Rick's hand and said, "I can't believe you are such a selfish bastard, Sean. One of our colleagues just died a horrible death. All you could do is show some empathy. I feel really bad for Shelley for falling in love with an asshole like you." And then she disconnected the phone in rage. Rick and Noah were hurt too by Sean's cruel behavior. The next day, when everyone went back to work, Kim noticed Sean standing at the cafeteria and laughing with a few coworkers, as if nothing has happened. Sean looked at her and said, "Hey, Kim." But she ignored him and walked away. The entire day, Kim didn't talk to Sean and avoided him completely. The office staff decorated Shelley's desk with candles. They placed a picture of Shelley where she was smiling like a happy, jolly girl. Kim stood in front of her desk and tears came to her eyes. She couldn't help but think that, no matter what kind of person she was, no one deserves to die such a horrible death. After work, she was leaving for home when Noah came and asked her, "Hey, you all right?" Kim nodded and replied, "Yeah, think so." Noah asked in a hesitant voice, Rick and I was thinking to go for a drink. Would you like to join us?" Any other day, Kim would have gone excitedly, but right now, all she wants is to go home and lie down. Kim said in a tired voice, "No thanks. I better go home and sleep." She left the office. Kim didn't want to take the subway, but that is her quickest option to reach home. She looked at her watch. It was 8 p.m. already. There were fewer people on the streets due to the cold weather. Reluctantly, Kim walked towards the subway. While getting down the stairs, a chilling sensation grabbed her spine. She doesn't know why she was feeling like something bad was going to happen here again. As she walked towards the platform, she started sweating in fear. But after looking down the tracks, she calmed down a bit. The tracks were clean and clear. There was no sign of blood. Kim sat down on the platform seats and waited for her train to arrive. There were 2 to 3 people on the platform, but all of them were waiting for the train on the other side. The empty subway platform stood silently in front of her eyes. A train came on the other side and left with the rest of the people waiting on the platform. Now, Kim was completely alone in this long subway. She looked at the timetable. She has to wait 10 minutes more for her ride. The feeling of being alone in the same subway where her colleague committed suicide yesterday wasn't a very comforting one. She was going through all these troublesome thoughts just when she heard a weird sound. It felt like someone was being dragged on the floor. And then another strange sound took place. Don't know how one should describe it, but if one has to put the sound into words, it was like, tiki, tiki. Kim didn't know what to do just when her eyes went on the edge of the platform. What the hell is that? She saw fingers on the edge of the platform, grabbing the floor. Before she could see further, suddenly, a hand touched her shoulder and almost screamed in fear. But as she turned back, she saw Sean standing there with a surprised face. Sean said with an awkward smile, "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Everything's all right?" Kim said in a relieved voice, "Don't ever do that." And then said, "What are you doing here?" Sean said, "I came to apologize for my behavior earlier. Kim, you should know I am equally shocked hearing about Shelley's death, but it wasn't my fault, you know. You know better than anyone how she made my life miserable. I won't say I'm glad that she died, but I can't do anything about this either. Kim didn't say anything, as Sean went on explaining how it wasn't his fault and Shelley was mentally ill. Sean was finishing his sentence on how Shelley should have visited a psychiatrist just when that sound took place again. Sean paused and said, "Did you hear that, or is it just me?" Kim said in a confused tone, "No, I did too." They glanced at the track nearby where that sound was coming. Sean started to walk towards the edge of the platform to see what it was. Kim went with him too, but what they saw next stopped their hearts. Sean fell on the floor and Kim stuck to the nearby pillar, breathing heavily. No sound came out of her mouth. It was Shelley, or one should say, it was Shelley's ghost. She was sitting on the tracks, but it was only the upper part of her body. Her hair was dripping blood. Her mouth was hollow and open. Her entrails were hanging from the end of her torso. She dragged herself up from the tracks with her hands and started limping towards Sean, making a horrible sound. Sean started to crawl back in fear and was about to get up and run just when a horrible incident happened in front of Kim's eyes. Shelley's ghost sliced Sean's body into two parts, splattering blood all over the platform. Sean's painful scream echoed inside the subway while Kim fainted then and there. Kim is still admitted in the hospital. All she heard in the news is that the security camera of the subway has captured bizarre footage of that night. The camera has shown Kim standing terrified, sticking up to the pillar nearby, while her colleague Sean is lying on the floor, panting and gasping for air. The bizarre thing is that there is no one else on the platform, but suddenly, Sean gets sliced into two halves, splashing blood all around, and dies a horrible death. The police tried many times to take Kim's statement about the incident, but Kim hasn't spoken a word since. She just stares at the hospital ceiling like a lifeless creature. Alma saw the clock. 3 a.m. it was. She peeped from her blanket to catch a view of her room. Even though the room heater was on, the air inside the house was ice cold. The pale moonlight made the room look even darker. Alma opened the door and stepped into the corridor. The kitchen is downstairs. She started walking carefully because it was too dark to see. Her hands were searching in the air for the wooden railings of the staircase. Suddenly, she heard a cry. Her face turned pale as if there's no blood left in her body. She stood there, in the dark, frozen. Yes, she has heard this before. When Alma was little, she lived in a wooden house with her family. Her mom used to tell her a bedtime story, which changed her life. Mom said, "Once upon a time, there lived a woman in a small village. She had gray hair and a sad face. Whenever she cried, someone started to die in that village. Village people believed she was cursed, so they banished her from that village. The woman started to wander in the woods all by herself in the dark. The woods scared her, and she cried. Whenever she cried, a creature nearby her died. Some people say her name is Banshee, and her spirit still roams around at night. Whoever hears her crying finds someone close to them dead the next day." Lying on her bed at night, Alma often thought that if this is true, if Banshee is real, and somehow she ended up falling asleep, until one night she actually heard Banshee crying in their own house. 3 a.m. That night she rose from her bed, left the woolen blanket on the floor, and went to get water. That was the third time she heard that weeping, as if someone was in real pain but can't do anything without weeping. She thought it was her little cat, but found it sleeping on the doormat. With a juggled feeling of curiosity and fear, she searched the entire floor. The weeping stayed for some time, and then it stopped. And then there was dead silence. Alma went to the kitchen, had her a glass of water. Just when she thought to go back, she saw her. She was sitting under the stairs and weeping. Alma isn't scared of the weeping anymore. The only thing that disturbs Alma is that when the woman cries, her eyes never blink. The woman stares back at Alma and cries, but never blinks. Like every other night, Alma ignored her and went to her room. The next morning, waking up, she heard chaos, suggesting something serious, something bad has occurred in their house. She walked through the corridor, following the sound coming from her brother's room. She entered and saw her mother was crying out loud near her brother's bed. She walked close to the bed. Brother was lying eyes closed, facing the ceiling of the wall. It seemed to her a very unusual way of sleeping, but Father told her, "Do not disturb him, dear. Let him sleep peacefully." Drops of sweat appeared on her forehead because Alma finally remembered. Today is that day. That day. On this day, 10 years back, Alma broke into tears as she started to remember. Her room was on the upper floor, beside her brother's. Mother and father used to sleep downstairs in Grandma's room. She was a newborn, and her brother hasn't been born yet when her grandmother died. Only in pictures she has seen her, inheriting an affectionate smile, grabbing the white pet rabbit in her lap. Today is that day, but in these 10 years, Alma never heard that cry again. Everyone is gone now. Her brother, mother, father, stays alone in the house. She couldn't stop her tears, thinking it was her fault. It was her fault that she didn't wake her parents up to tell them about that woman. Suddenly, she heard footsteps coming from her room. Is she coming for her now? Alma rushed to the stairs in that dark and tried to hide under the wooden steps. She tried not to make any sound, but the footsteps were close. Someone was coming down the stairs. Alma closed her eyes in fear and the footsteps stopped. She slowly opened her eyes. She was panting, whimpering. Who knows what will she see? Her eyes were wide open. She couldn't blink, couldn't move. It was a white-haired old woman with a sad face, standing in the kitchen, looking right at her. Alma's world went upside down. She lives alone. The doors are locked. How did this woman get inside? The woman with the sad face pointed at her. Alma knew what she meant. The ground beneath her feet slid away. The woman knows Alma's secret. 10 years back, Alma choked her little brother in his sleep with his pillow. Mom and Dad never loved Alma the same way after her brother was born. They often bought him more toys than her. Even if their brother broke her dolls or destroyed her clothes, Mom never scolded him. She was ignored and forgotten after they got a son. She remembered how she consoled herself all these years that her brother was ready to go. That brother wanted to, needed to. We all need that eternal sleep. It is a relief, a rescue from the sin committed by self. How many times we have wished for a chance to rebuild or reconstruct something that has already taken place. But what is left is just a memory, either good or bad. Our life bestows upon us a rainfall of incidents. Some make us, some break us, and some of them leave us in the perplexity of reality. Alma's mother couldn't take the shock of how a little boy died in his sleep. How can his heart just stop? It broke her parents, but not her, because she was happy. She was happy claiming all their toys only for her. She was happy, unlawfully, contempt though, but happy as her right remained undivided. But now, Banshee has come for her. It is her time to go now. Alma stood up and spoke in a broken voice. I didn't want to kill him. I was just a child. Banshee started to walk towards her by taking slow footsteps. Her finger was still pointed at Alma. Alma went on with her nervous utterance. Please, let me go. I was just a child. I thought if I pushed the pillow hard, he will be quiet and sleep for a few days. But I never knew he will never wake up. Please let me go. It has been 10 years now. Why do you have to torment me like this every year on this day? Why can't you just leave me alone? But Banshee kept walking towards her. She reached extremely close to Alma. Alma could see her clouded eyes full of pain. Banshee then opened her dark mouth and started to scream. Alma got terrified by this scene and she fainted on the ground. The next morning when she woke up, she found herself lying on the hospital bed. She couldn't tell was it a dream or reality. Her next-door neighbor came to visit her this morning, but when she didn't open her door, her neighbor, Miss Sherman, called the cops and they admitted her into the hospital. Miss Sherman was standing in the hospital when the doctor came to her and asked her, "Does she always suffer such panic attacks?" Miss Sherman said in a sad voice, "Not always, but every month of January on this very day, she often screams and reacts completely different. Once I stayed with her as she told me she was having nightmares about some white-haired woman. I don't know why she kept telling in her sleep that she didn't kill her brother." The doctor replied with a surprised face, "What happened to her brother?" Miss Sherman replied, "Don't ask. Alma has been through a lot. It seems like her family has a history of heart condition. She was little when her brother died of a heart attack. Then her mom and dad died the same way at their old age. Please, look at her, doctor. She needs help." The doctor nodded his head and said he will do his best. Alma got sent to a mental institution for better care. She now just sits near a window, hardly speaks. She sometimes looks at her hands and thinks about how she put 3 lives out of their misery. But she doesn't know why she is still alive. Did Banshee leave her to suffer till eternity? I am sure all of you are quite aware of the television reality show, Big Brother. Every year, they feature a new season with new sets of celebrities. There are many adaptations of this show in various languages. This is the story of Richard, who worked in the production team of 2018 Big Brother. His job was to install the cameras all over the Big Brother house and then check the footage to see if all of them are working properly. The work of the crew began months before the actual show. Richard was all set to leave for Los Angeles, where the show was about to take place. He packed his bags and called the supplier and told him to reach there with all the equipment and manpower. He got in his car and started to drive towards the set of Big Brother. After 1.5 hours, he finally saw the large gate of the Big Brother house. He entered through those gates, parked his car on the right side. Production manager James was standing at the gate talking to the suppliers. He was a sharp-faced, mean guy. He was always seen flirting with women co-workers on set. Richard was standing there. Suddenly, Smith came to him and said, "How do you like this location?" Smith was the security guard here. Richard smiled and said, "This is a big house. It's surprising why they didn't choose this location earlier." Smith looked around and said in a lower voice, "Meet me at lunch. I will tell you why," and walked towards the gate. Richard thought to himself, why is Smith being so mysterious suddenly? Eventually, he walked to the screen room to check on the camera setup. The screen room had 3 large flat screens which showcased the footages of all the rooms of the house. Richard grabbed the nearest chair and started to check the connection of each camera installed in those rooms. The show has 1 month to start, so the house is completely empty right now. The supplier came to him around 4 p.m., and they discussed the other technical works. Richard goes out to take a break around 6 p.m. As he came outside the studio, he realized most of the people are gone now. Richard was used to staying late at shooting sets. His job was to look after all the technical support and make sure they run well without any issues during the shooting. He lit a cigarette and noticed the small room near the gate. Smith lives there. Richard was standing on the ground, smoking on his own, just when something popped into his mind. He remembered Smith saying, "Meet me at lunch, and I will tell you why." He thought to pay him a visit and chat with him for a while. Richard started to walk towards the small room. The place was so silent that he could hear his every step. As he reached near the room, he saw Smith sipping tea from a cup. Smith gave him a big smile and said, "Please, sit here." Richard sat on the chair, and they started talking. Richard asked, "What were you talking about in the afternoon?" Smith's face suddenly became all serious. He said, "Well, it's just a scary story. But now, I think I shouldn't be telling you that because you will be staying here tonight. That too, alone inside the studio." And started laughing. Richard understood that Smith called him a coward indirectly, so he became more adamant. He forced him to tell the story, and Smith finally agreed. Last month, the production team of Big Brother renovated this place to shoot the current season. Before that, this place remained abandoned for about 5 or 6 years. The security guard who worked here before me told me this very scary story about this place. He said a few years back, this place used to be for auditioning newcomers and shooting small scenes of movies. There was a beautiful girl named Kathy who came for a movie audition. James was then a junior manager here. He already had a bad reputation for flirting with women at work. People say he promised to give Kathy a big break in the movie and trapped her into his love. They were always seen on the set. But after a point, James's interest shifted to another girl he eventually dumped Kathy for, and told her to leave this place. One night, James was working late in the studio when Kathy came to talk to him. The security guard knew her and liked her for her polite nature, so he let her inside the gates. She went to James's room and started crying for betraying her. They had a terrible fight, and the next morning, the guard found her lifeless body floating on the swimming pool at the back of the studio. People say she committed suicide out of sadness. James had good contacts, so he didn't face any criminal charges. Richard asked, "Well, that's unfortunate, but what is scary about this story?" Smith pointed at the house and said, "Many people have seen a woman floating upside down in the pool of this house. They first thought it was a dead body, but when they went to call others and came back, there was no one in the pool. Many believe the girl's ghost still haunts this place." Richard laughed loudly and said, "These are just rumors, Smith. I have worked late nights alone in many sets. There is no such thing as ghosts. You have to try harder if you want to scare me." Smith smiled and didn't say anything more. Richard looked at his watch and said, "It's 8 p.m. I should get back to work. But call me if you see any ghosts around." Ooh, come on, man. And left the room laughing. As he went inside the studio, he saw the empty hallway lying in front of him. At the end of the hall, there was a huge glass wall that directly faced the pool of the house. There was no one by the pool side. Also, the pool was very dirty. Richard told the supplier to send people tomorrow to clean it. He walked to his room and sat on his chair. Every room of the house was lying in front of his eyes. He decided to check the footage of the last few hours to analyze the performance of the cameras. At the Big Brother show, these cameras are a very important tool. He played the footage of the last few hours and started to scroll through it. Dining space, check. Kitchen, check. Washroom area, check. Garden space, check. And just when he shifted to the pool area, cold shivering ran down his spine. Who was that girl standing near the pool? He fast-forwarded the footage and found out the girl stood near the pool for almost an hour and disappeared suddenly. Drops of sweat appeared on his forehead. He said to himself, "Was Smith telling the truth? Is this place really haunted by some woman's ghost?" He immediately closed the past footages and opened the current shooting of the camera at the poolside. There was no one there right now. Is this some stupid prank Smith is trying to pull on him? He thought to himself. Just then, he heard a terrifying scream, and his eyes got stuck on the screen. There was a woman in the pool. She was floating upside down. Richard couldn't believe his own eyes. He ran to the glass wall on the corridor, and what he saw made his skin crawl in fear. There was a woman actually floating on the pool. Her body was lifeless. Richard said in a low, scared voice, "Oh my God." Suddenly, the woman lifted up her face. Richard never saw such a scary face. The skin of her face was pale and rotten. Her wide, big eyes were almost coming out of the eye sockets. She looked at Richard and opened her mouth. From her dark, hollow mouth, maggots started to come out. Richard fell on the floor in fear. He wanted to scream, but no voice came out of him. The woman got up and slowly walked towards the glass wall. She was now standing close to Richard. The glass was the only division between them. Her nails were hanging from rotten fingers. She looked extremely terrifying. Her hair and clothes were drenched in water. She kept staring at him and then started to laugh. Her voice was freaking terrifying. Richard felt like the glass would shatter with her voice. He got up and started to run towards the gate for his life. As soon as he came out of the house, he ran like a maniac to Smith's room. Smith was shocked to see Richard all freaked out. Before he could tell what happened, Richard fainted on the floor. Richard was admitted to the hospital. He stayed for a week due to a high fever. He never went back to the set of Big Brother. He left the contract, stating his poor health condition. Smith came to visit him at the hospital, but Richard didn't say a single word to him. Who would believe Richard? Everyone will think he just lost his head after hearing a scary story and made it all up. Till today, Richard sees nightmares that he's standing near the glass and that horrifying woman figure is staring at him and laughing like a maniac.
Well, hello. Man, that was 3 urban legends horror stories animated by IMR Scary Tales Entertainment. They are really, really good. Good. Like, they surprise me every week how good they are. Alright. We're gonna do the dead spread. It's a 5-card spread. We're gonna see what's going on with a deceased loved one, someone that is gonna reach out to us and talk to us about what's going on with them. Alright, now okay. Now the person that we're connecting with here, they didn't get a lot of unexpected blessings within their life. They were just, always handed the short stick. Now, looking back on their life, they realized that they had a lot of quarrel, strife, and competition. Basically, they were fighting with someone over something stupid, and then the relationship was kind of crawling away. And they wish they hadn't done that. A lesson that they'd like to share is that they noticed that they weren't getting everything they needed out of life. They were getting their wants done, not their needs. And so they wanted to break out and become an entrepreneur and do their own thing, but they were chained. So they see that same thing going on with you, and they want you to break out of that and go for what you want and what you dream about. Alright? I know it's always easier to shuffle your wants and needs and everything underneath a rug and put yourself last on the back burner, but they're saying don't do that. Do not do that. Do something for you, right? Something they wish that they had paid more attention to when they were alive, or they should have grown spiritually, right? Intuitively and whatnot, but they didn't. And so that's just kind of where they were left. Now, a message they like to give you is this: patiently gain progress towards what you want, what you need. Okay? Just because it's not happening like that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Do those little goals that are broken up from big goals so that you can get them little goals out of the way, and then each big goal out of the way as you go, and things will fall into place. And it's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be long and arduous. I don't know. Anyway, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, alright? So just keep fighting and doing what you gotta do. Not like fighting isn't like beating people up, but you know what I mean, right? Working for what's yours and not giving in to anyone unless you want to. Okay? And remember, most importantly, that you are not a doormat. Okay? I love you all. Thank you so much for listening to me. My name is Libra Empress. Please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you for next week's Tarot and Tarot with me, Libra Empress. I love you. Bye, my friends.